I think we can go ahead and start with our webinar. First of all, I would like to thank all of you, the people that are joining, but especially the panel. I'm very excited because we have a panel of, on one side, two platforms that exist to source on-demand talent. And we have two companies that represent, the people that need the talent. So I'm very proud to have all of you here, especially starting with the marketplace side. Abir is joining, representing Khibrati. Now, as soon as I finish the introduction, you can introduce yourselves a bit deeper, right? And then I have we have Fatima Hashmi, who is based in Abu Dhabi and representing a company called Nimr. And if I didn't say this right, please correct me. Very interesting company, manufacturing the armored vehicles and armored vehicle ecosystems, I assume. Great. And we also have Mr. Fadel, Mohammed Fadel, who's based in Saudi and representing IoT Squared, which is one of the STC sister companies focusing on IoT solutions. And all in all, I think we have a good balance between supply and demand here. So thank you very much for joining, and thanks everyone for still connecting to the webinar. And the topic of the webinar is how do we respond to the current economic pressures, right? And what's next for the talent in the Middle East? And this is basically the context. We'll go into details what the current context means, country per country and in general. But yeah, I would like maybe starting with Abir to present each other. And yeah, the table is for you.
Thank you, Saibi. So happy to be here. My name is Abir Qumsiye, and I'm from Khibrati. And Khibrati is basically an online remote-first company that basically connects experts from all around the world to the Middle East market. We're very happy to be here. I'm from Jordan. Our company is located basically literally all over the world. We're very proud that our team is a remote team, and our concentration and focus is on the Middle East market. So we supply experts from all over the world to the Middle East market. I am currently talking to you from Jordan and very happy to connect.
Thank you, Abir. Thank you very much. Fatima, what about you?
Hi, so I'm basically based in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, and we are a company that is owned by, it's actually one of the Edge Group entities that is directly under the Ministry of Defense in the UAE. The city of Abu Dhabi is not very expensive, but over the years has experienced phenomenal growth in infrastructure. And obviously there is a dire need for talent, quality talent, and obviously both from the Middle East, from the GCC, and obviously around the world.
Yes. Thanks, Fatima. Mohammed.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mohammed Fadel. I manage partnerships for a leading emerging tech company based in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. I carry about 18 years of experience across a multitude of roles, ranging from project management, delivery, sales, pre-sales, and now partnerships and alliances with large SIs, both regional and global. I've had a good diversified experience, including in the defense tech space where Fatma is. Currently we working with SAMI AEC in the past, which is the Saudi equivalent of Edge. And currently, as mentioned by Sebi, with an STC group company. Not a partner of STC, but partially owned by STC group company.
Well, thank you very much for the introductions. I'm Sebi. I'm representing Outvise. Similar to Khibrati, we are a global platform focused on business tech experts, so companies that need experts on demand to drive technology transformation projects. We are able to supply, and our footprint is also global, although we have a physical presence in Spain, in Barcelona, where I'm currently based. We also have presence in the UAE, in Qatar, and we are working to open up now our presence in Saudi. So if we manage to go through the red tape, we will. So yes, it will happen. Thank you very much for the introduction. I would like to briefly discuss as an introduction the topic and the context of the market, and then I'll need each one of you to explain your experience in each of your markets, right? But in general, the last year, especially we experienced as Outvise from February, March onwards, there's been a certain contraction in certain talent sourcing. And we've seen this in consulting firms that have less requests and less projects. But we've also seen this year a contention in on-demand. In general, the prospects specifically for the Middle East has always been a heavy drive of talent through all the transformations that are ongoing and will continue to ongo. But the IMF already predicted a slight decline in growth. You're growing strong at 5%, right? And the reviewed forecast were around 3%. As part of the Staffing Industry Association, we also get reports on the market in general. And the talent sourcing companies and the talent-related companies have dropped revenues in the last 12, 18 months, around 8 to 10% drops, right? So this is the current context. It's a bit more challenging, and we believe that there are relevant answers out there to support the demand for talent, the companies that need talent, basically on the on-demand side to provide flexibility and cost efficiency. So we do see this trend going on. So yes, there's still full-time hiring, but increasingly we're adding on-demand talent. So this is where we and Khibrati operate. So Fatima, what's your view in the UAE on what I've said? How are you experiencing this in the UAE for the last year and a half?
So the UAE market has definitely evolved into a mature talent market, which is characterized by a diverse workforce and a growing number of multinational companies, as you are aware. However, there is challenges that persist, particularly regarding, costs related to employee accommodation, any kind of recruitment costs, especially the recruitment agencies. So these costs have been significantly becoming concern for both employers and employees. And there's also rising prices, especially in the urban centers like Dubai and Abu Dhabi. And then the employers, obviously, these companies have prompted to reassess their compensation packages. So there's definitely been changes to the overall spending and the compensation structure when it comes to the talent market and the job market in the UAE, just in the past year as we come out of this post-COVID.
Yes, definitely. I mean, the experience we have goes in that direction also. It's behaving more like a much more mature market. Abir, what's your view from Jordan and on the markets you operate?
Yeah, thank you for that. The day before yesterday, I was just sitting here beside my desk, and suddenly my home windows were shaking. And it's the first time I've experienced such a thing. I was shocked, actually. Where am I? I'm not in Lebanon. I'm not in Palestine. I'm in Jordan. What's happening? So I go out and then I see missiles over my head. And then the news, of course, that Iran is hitting. So you can imagine what landscape I would be in today in Jordan with everything that's going in the world, especially that we're in the middle of a conflict zone, right? But let's go back a little bit to what happened during Corona and how that affected our world everywhere. And there's definitely economic struggles that are happening, a shift in rising costs in energy, food, essential goods, all of which are impacting business operations. So definitely we can see budgets are cut across sectors, especially in government-funded projects. And we've seen that in Saudi Arabia, where we also operate as well. So all that have led to restraints in the hiring and actually the rethinking of the long-term workforce strategies. So there's a balance, or I want to say a delicate balance, between the increasing demand of specialized talent and the shrinking budgets due to broader economic pressures. Now, if we look at our current landscape, the demand in talent remains strong. We cannot say otherwise. So there's a lot of demand. And actually, you know, with the digital transformation in the world, there's a big demand on specific skills. But the economic realities have reshaped organizations, how they source, how they deploy the talent. So businesses now are prioritizing cost-effective, flexible solutions that can enable them to stay competitive while managing their fiscal challenges. So for talent providers and platforms, this could come as a good news or as an opportunity, if we put it this way, because there is a shift towards that. Also, an interesting fact that we're seeing that the world is becoming more global, right? So we're seeing that other countries are demanding talent, Jordanian talent. So we've been receiving some requests for companies asking outside of Jordan, sometimes in really new markets, asking us for talent, especially that Jordanian talent. Some of them are really tech savvy, the work ethics are good, but there is a scaling demand on talent and a different type of talent. So to cut the story short, for businesses, they want to reduce overheads, of course. So they want more efficient resource allocation. For professionals now and people that are more interested in the freelance world and the flexibility that the freelance world is providing, I think there is a really interesting demand on that type of talent, and it still needs time, but definitely we can see some shifts over there.
Thanks. There's always a topic I come back to, which is there is being and has been a lot of the investment in platforms, technology transformation. And I think now the attention is becoming more on the return on that investment and how these platforms are being used. So it's also a moment to be very cost efficient in that sense and very precise on where you invest your money. So on-demand talent in this case can be a very good solution to complete that need. Mohammed, public spend being contained in Saudi, what does that mean for you? What's your view?
So you guys are aware, I mean, an oil rig hotel, the world's tallest skyscraper, a zero carbon emission city. You know that Saudi Arabia is just one mega project after another. As you might have heard, Saudi Arabia is now the construction capital of the world. I mean, giga projects like NEOM, Qiddiya, King Salman Park, Riyadh Metro, and you keep hearing of a new giga project coming up almost every month, every month of the year. So there's massive preparations underway in Saudi Arabia for hosting Expo 2030 and hopefully the World Cup as well. You know, I'm a big football fan, so much love the opportunity to look at the World Cup games here. Now, Saudi Arabia, of course, is well known to be the largest market in the region, but it comes with its own unique set of challenges, including most significantly skills availability. I think what I'm seeing, at least from my perspective, is, with all these construction jobs happening, with all these construction projects underway in Saudi, I see the largest demand today is still for blue collar jobs, not yet for the white collar jobs. So all these giga projects today are yet in the construction phase, and when they move out of the construction phase is when really tech and business talent will come in demand. Today, it's largely construction workers coming in. Flights are full from majority of the Asian countries. You do see a lot of foreign talent coming into the country as well on the business and tech side. But at the same time, locals are better prepared now to take on those jobs. So over the last 20, 30 years, Saudi Arabia has been investing heavily in talent development. They have this, I think it's one of the largest foreign university education programs in the world. So, any graduate coming out of a Saudi school or university with the best grades, and they have their own qualification criteria, gets a free scholarship, for himself and his family in very pristine universities worldwide, prestigious institutions. So that is now, those fruits are now bearing results. You see that talent taking over, in Saudi. So there is a balance now between localization and foreign talent in country, and I see that only growing as the years move on.
Definitely, that's very obvious now in the latest discussions we're having in Saudi. Going back to Abir's point, on new strategies, right? How to combine the solidization with the right, maybe talent on demand for projects, so that the knowledge transfer is there and the sustainability is there, right? Clearly, the size of Saudi can allow for this, and a smart combination of both the local teams and smart deployment of whatever external talent can help a lot. Our view, to complete the picture in the region, we see Qatar as obviously smaller in terms of the project sizes and what they need to do. But we do see sustained demand in Qatar. And similar case in Oman. There's quite a few things going on in Oman, although the economy is different in Oman. And typically, Oman, in my view, has a tougher competition to bring certain talent, because on the price base, on the cost base, there are more constraints. It's a market that cannot compete head to head with other regional markets in terms of what they can pay, right? So they need it, they are using it, they have projects, but they need to find the right type of cost, which, by the way, global sourcing of talent can help, because we can brokerage talent from many parts of the world. And if one is open-minded in terms of remote work or hybrid work, we can find really cost-effective combinations there. So that's a little bit of a preview on the market context. We would like to launch a little survey now, to understand, if our audience is hiring talent on demand. Typically, we use this to understand the trend, how this is going. So yeah, have you ever hired a talent on demand? And I'm not going to answer, but we'll have the audience to do that for us. We'll have also at the end of our webinar, we'll ask everyone to answer a little survey, 3 questions, which also helps us find out trends and understand better needs. Okay. Okay, so yes, we have a significant amount of people that have hired talent on demand. Let me move to the question structure. And I don't know if this is showing correctly. No, it's not really showing correctly. We have a formatting issue. Okay, I'll just read through the main topics. We selected 5 key questions to discuss in the next 25 minutes, and then we open up a session with questions and answers from the audience. Right, so first one is, what is on-demand talent and why is it relevant nowadays? We have responded to this partly. What trends do we see in the Middle East in terms of on-demand talent? How do we bridge talent gap, specifically maybe in Saudi Arabia, in the context of what you mentioned, Mohammed, the solidization and the growth of that local talent? Strategies to balance our teams, full-time employees, with other types of talent. And yeah, what kind of tools or strategies could we have to build a talent pipeline, right? Okay, oops, I leave it to this. Okay, so what is on-demand talent? I'll give a brief introduction and then I'll let Abir complete. So on-demand talent is a form of talent that allows companies to access people when needed and as needed, right? It could be as short as a few days. It could be as long as a few months. When it becomes longer, it becomes interim and it's longer-term engagements. It's a different story, but it could also be part of on-demand. The trick here is that you have a specific need now that you cannot fill with your team, and you have an alternative to access someone for a period of time, right? So this is very flexible. The way to acquire this talent and to deal with this talent is very flexible in terms of the duration or even deliverables. So it allows companies to actually diversify the potential to access that talent that might be difficult to hire full time. It might take really 6 months, 9 months to hire certain types of talent, right? So with that headline introduction, Abir, what's your take on on-demand talent?
So I want to start by asking you to imagine that you're in a new city and you've experienced that city and you go back home. And when you remember that city, how do you remember that city? One of the things that you would remember is the smell of that city. So we had a request from the Saudi market on an expert that is knowledgeable on smells of city. And that was from Riyadh. And they wanted to identify that smell, right? So how do you get an expert how you get that expert in 2 days? And that can basically fill in and give that experience. So that's the beauty of the on-demand talent today, that you have someone who has done this before, ready to give you the expertise in 1 day. So the importance of the on-demand talent has never been greater, and especially in the economic climate today, where businesses face the dual challenge of addressing operational needs while managing the tight budgets. So the ability to scale up or down with on-demand talent is significant. It is a big advantage, and offering strategic and flexible solutions for any company navigating uncertainty. And if you look, we're talking about the Middle East market today. It's all about uncertainty, right? So the on-demand talent today gives us scalability and agility. So it allows businesses to scale with their workforce quickly, in a nutshell, quick, like we say, snap, without long-term commitments that could hinder, taking that type of risk, because the risk is really calculated with the on-demand talent. So the flexibility helps the company adapt to changing market demands efficiently. Also, I want to talk about cost effectiveness. So hiring the on-demand talent reduces overheads by avoiding full-time salary commitments. Let me give you an example. I want to go back to Corona, right? So the Jordanian government, just an example, put enforced a law that you need to, if you hire anyone, you need to pull their full-time salary no matter what. You cannot lay them off. And I'm sure that happened in other markets. Now, if we want to address the immediate needs of businesses, that's where on-demand talent helps fill urgent skill gaps and supports time-sensitive projects. Because if we want to hire long-term employees, I tell you, it takes a lot of effort, a lot of time, and it comes with a lot of risks. So if I want to bring the on-demand talent, I can access them quickly because of the great platforms out there. And of course, I can reduce the delays in execution, and I can also reduce the risk on the financial pressures that companies go through. So I can try the talent, I get what I want, and of course, productivity with on-demand talent is much higher. So I want to say expertise at your fingertips is the on-demand talent. So in a nutshell, it's a strategic necessity today for businesses navigating the challenging economic environment.
Brilliant. I love the example you chose. It's pretty unique. And I would just add the fact that looking at a global perspective, so the whole world of talent, and if we are flexible enough to incorporate hybrid or remote models, we can compete with any part of the world to attract that talent that exactly we need, right? So no matter how specific it is, we can find it and we can bring it on board. So yeah, in a nutshell, was a very good explanation, Abir. Thank you very much. Fatima, the next question is maybe for you. What would you like to talk about? What possible trends you see in the Middle East when it comes to sourcing talent, and specifically sourcing on-demand talent? Sorry, is it me or there's a mic issue?
I think I was on mute. Sorry about that. Very good question. So technically, the trends in the Middle East market concerning on-demand talent, particularly in the UAE, is evolving rapidly. The key trends include increased reliance on freelance and contractual work. Nowadays, companies are now turning to on-demand talent solutions to fill in their skill gaps quickly and flexibly, in particular sectors like technology, marketing, and creative industries. There's also global economic influences as businesses navigate global economic uncertainties. And as Abir mentioned, the agility provided by on-demand talent allows for cost-effective scaling of operations without the long-term commitment of full-time hires. There's also a regional market maturity. As the Middle East market matures, there's a growing acceptance of, short-term work gigs, leading to a more robust ecosystem for freelancers and contractors, contractual employment. And there's also technological advances, the rise of digital platforms facilitating freelance work, which has made it very easy for companies to connect with talent quickly and efficiently for a short duration of time. Also, you must understand that we have the Expo 2020 in Dubai, which was recently, and that was during the COVID. So post-COVID and post the Expo 2020, the Dubai market and basically overall the UAE market has evolved drastically, and obviously there's definitely a demand for talent. But because as we gradually come out of the challenges that we faced during COVID, I think companies are skeptical about hiring talent for long term. So I think the obvious solution we have right now, especially when it comes to hiring talent quickly in sectors like AI technology, or perhaps for us cybersecurity, data analytics, we are hiring on-demand talent, contractual employees to be able to fill in these gaps and fill them in quickly. And it could be for a short-term period, like 1 year, 2 years, with the possibility of providing them a long-term or a direct employment contract.
Yes, true. We do see those last scenarios that you mentioned, longer-term engagements with the possibility to actually join. Actually, there's a very good example. We've had some of our clients in Qatar, specifically, they're launching new product lines, new business lines, and the board has not approved an organization. They have approved a project and a budget. And until the concept, the business unit is not solid enough to stand on its own feet and mature enough, they're not willing to invest in full-time employees. So what they have a skeleton team, and then they're feeding the team with on-demand talent. Once the concept is flying and it's like an MVP, no, minimum viable product, then they might release additional headcount, and that some of that people could join the company. That's a very relevant example, and we've experienced the same thing in our case. Thank you, Fatima. Okay, Mohammed, going back to Saudi, and you mentioned the Saudization and what kind of strategies can you have to bridge this gap or to complete the talent portfolio with the Saudization requirements plus the external requirements in a cost-efficient way?
Certainly. So, Sebi, as other markets in the region, Saudi Arabia has its own unique set of challenges. Let me take, for example, Red Sea is now coming up with the largest aquaculture farms in the region. There's a lot of farming happening around Saudi Arabia, and there was never an agriculture degree for in the universities here. So obviously, I mean, when there's going to be a new industry that is going to get created all of a sudden, there will be a talent gap, and that talent gap will have to be fulfilled using foreign talent. Now, the challenge can be addressed generally. The skills gap that exists today, this challenge can be addressed using a range of solutions, including the typical staff augmentation, using contract resources, outsourcing through typical HR manpower companies, and there are now some HR manpower companies that are set up by the government, not just a few, actually, there are quite a few that have been set up by the government. So the government is itself taking on the onus of bringing in the talent required to fill the gaps, in addition to the private players, of course. And last but not least, yes, online marketplaces that offer talent on demand, like yourself. In addition to this, we also have the managed services model. Now, this is might not be applicable to all the sectors, in play, but definitely applicable to the IT, sector. So what happens in the managed services model is you can obviously outsource your service needs to major players that can deliver it under their ownership in an on-site offshore model. So we see a significant uptake in that. And last but not least, there's the freelance market, which is on-demand talent in a way, but literally freelance. I mean, you go and find them yourself, not through marketplaces like yourself. So unfortunately, freelance resources are not an abundantly available resource in Saudi Arabia. They too are a part of a global common resource pool. Now, companies like Outvise deserve a mention because they offer a unique offering. That you give me a wide talent pool, taking away all the contracting nuances, and this I hope is adopted by large enterprises in Saudi. But generally, what I see is an increased adoption of managed services contracts, including flexible offshoring options.
In
So I see that
technology space.
in the technology space. Yeah, this is the general perception, and this is what I'm seeing as well. I'm witnessing firsthand large managed services contracts being awarded. Earlier, even the managed services contracts that were awarded were focused, with a certain minimum on-site delivery requirement. So they would say that, if you're going to bring in 100 resources, 70 have to be on-site, only 30% can be offshore. Again, they would also say that minimum X, Y, Z resources should be Arabic speaking. But now I see lots of flexibility on those managed services contracts coming up in the tech space.
Very interesting. Thank you. Abir, the next one is for both of us, but especially for you. How to balance, what's your experience when you talk to clients and when they set up their talent sourcing strategies and they need to balance the full-time employees with on-demand talent? So what's your take in how the companies are dealing with this? What are the gaps and the challenges and maybe what they should be looking after?
Yeah, well, actually, we have great case studies where the blend of both on-demand and full-time talent can really make a big difference. So we cannot deny the fact in the Middle East that the on-demand talent is relatively new. Of course, in what sense new? New in that we source them through platforms like Khibrati and like Outvise. Today, the idea is that how do we get companies into doing or going into that direction, and what's the benefit of doing that blend? A really interesting case study came to us where one of our clients realized the importance of the international talent, of course, and what value they can bring to the table. So they asked us for an on-demand person, and that person basically, when they saw his profile, they thought, wow, what a great person to employ. And they asked us, can we discuss a full-time employment with him? And we said, yes, why not? And we brought that person who was an on-demand talent into a full-time project. And the blend between that person and the full-time employees was amazing, because that made a big difference where you transform knowledge, first of all. And also when you bring productivity higher up because of the international standard that this on-demand talent brings to the table. So today, if we want to say what is working, yes, a blend is definitely a good model to consider. It allows businesses to optimize resources, scale operations, and meet project needs without the financial strain of maintaining large permanent workforce. This model, of course, presents beautiful opportunities. You leverage international benchmarks, so basically you're utilizing global best practices for blending full-time and on-demand talent. So you're providing access to international expertise, optimizing workforce flexibility. Now, the Middle East market can adopt, of course, similar approaches. You can drive innovation in your organization, you maintain your operational efficiency, and you may bring your productivity higher, because when you have international talent, definitely then the benchmark becomes higher. Also, these talent pools, when they bring the international expertise, they impact the companies and how they work and how they operate, and they bring them faster to where they need to go. If we look at today at, government and public sector projects as well, you can see governments talking to each other, trying to mimic each other's progress. So also, we believe like governments should also adopt high on-demand talent, and we are seeing the government of Saudi Arabia doing that on a really large scale. Of course, achieving that can also help cost effectiveness and cost efficiencies, because companies will be able to reserve full-time roles for critical functions and use on-demand talent for short-term critical functions, so reducing the costs and basically prevent overstaffing and eliminate also training expenses, for example, for the temporary needs. We've seen the cultures of organizations being affected by the on-demand skill set that they bring. So that's also a big plus, because when we look at the talent pools of international on-demand experts, they're on a different level. So they can positively affect the organizations that they work with, be it short-term or mid-term projects.
Brilliant. I would like to expand on the knowledge transfer and culture. The cost effectiveness for me is very straightforward. I have nothing to add. But on the knowledge transfer and culture, I think there's a huge opportunity that is not yet well captured. The reason is the following. Most of the cases when we have on-demand talent from our clients, a request, it's coming from the business, from a business unit, let's say head of M&A, head of strategy, CTO. And it goes usually straight to procurement, and it's treated like consulting. And they insert themselves as a project with a specific scope. So there's a few things there that makes us think, right? First of all, a culture change, right? One of the culture changes is to manage increasingly people based on project and based on deliverables, on outcomes, right? And that you need to do with a contractor, right? And some of that is really good if it's translated to the rest of the organization. So that custom, that habit is a good one. The second one is the role of HR. And we always wish that HR had a more active role when it comes to on-demand sourcing. Some companies are doing it, but most companies are not yet doing it. It goes more through procurement. So if HR had in their strategic talent planning needs of the projects and what is required to deliver, the combination of what do we have in-house, what do we need to upskill in-house, what do we need to hire, and what can we fast track with on-demand talent, and make sure that we have a specific plan to merge or embed or pair people so that they get that knowledge transfer, I think they would get double the value from on-demand talent. And sometimes, unfortunately, when we discuss with clients, HR, in some cases, they see us as something that is not always welcome, right? And I say it because they see this as competing with full-time employees, some cases, and they see that depends on the situation. If the projects are longer in time, right, it can replace in a wrong way full-time hires, right? So there should be ideally a much closer collaboration with HR and a win-win collaboration with HR to extract the whole culture and knowledge transfer benefits from kind of even hiring these freelancers, right? Hiring these freelancers, they might have the absolute perfect skills, but culture-wise, they might not be the right fit with our teams, right? So that point of view should also be brought into the process, and it is in many cases, right? But I don't see this as a general thing happening. I don't know if you share that perspective.
Well, of course, like for any full-time hire, you need onboarding, right? Onboarding into the company's culture, the values, the processes, the procedures, and so on. And some companies do training program. When you bring in the on-demand talent, a lot of HR departments or CHROs, unfortunately, they don't think that this is also the direction they need to take. We are big believers of, like, we need to onboard on-demand talent similarly to a certain extent, between quotations, like we onboard full-time employees, depending on the length of the engagement, of course. But again, because the value of the blend brings a lot of rewards and return on investment for the companies. And that's why we would love that the HR departments and the directors and decision makers and even the CEOs look at this and consider the on-demand talent as an asset, exactly like their HR assets, their human resources assets. Basically, on-demand talent is as important, and the value that the on-demand talent brings is massive if we invest in them the right way we invest in our staff. So definitely training, onboarding, culture match, and everything, and try to utilize all that value that the on-demand talent brings over.
I would like, actually, we had another question, which is the frameworks or strategies for effectively building a robust talent pipeline, right? But this is so close to what we discussed now that I would invite Fatima and Mohammed. What's your view on this last topic, on how to integrate this on-demand talent? What's your experience there, and what would you like to see improved, or maybe on our side, what could we do better?
Okay, so in particular, within the Edge entities, we tend to hire on-demand talent for various projects. Because there's a short-term commitment, we tend to hire on-demand talent for roles such as engineering. It could be something that is more or less a role that is in HR, could be support functions, could be the core functions. But what you do is, we as HR are involved in the hiring process, and keeping the on-demand talent motivated, keeping the morale high, it's integral to building, productive teams and high-performing teams. So how we do treat with this issue, yes, there is a disconnect when it comes to comparing the direct talent with the full-time hires with the on-demand talent. We call them, short-term contractual employees. What we do is we treat them the same or equal when it comes to the HR policy that we have. So there's really no discrepancies when it comes to treating the full-time employees and the short-term contractual hires. Possibly, we do also offer them, training development when it comes to being scheduled for particular training courses that are applicable for our industry, which is a very niche industry. So we do tend to give them access to training development, such as more project management, or it could be lean management, or even related to agile management. And if they perform really, really well, they're driven, they're focused, they're high performing, they're motivated, then there is that possibility that we would hire them permanently. So recently, we'd actually hired someone for a project management role. And this individual brought a lot of expertise to the table, added value, worked very well with the team. And he'd been on board with us for approximately 4 months when the line manager reached out to me and said, he is performing really well. He's meshed really well with the rest of the team and the demands. And because we work in a very niche industry, we work in a high pressure environment, and he's adapted himself very well. And he's also Arabic speaking, so that really helped us. And he wanted to hire him on a full-term basis. So obviously, we had to reach out to senior management to obtain their approval for the budget. And because the feedback was so positive, we were able to get the approval for this direct hire, and we managed to bring him on board. And it's a win-win situation. So we tend to do that quite a lot. Obviously, it's not possible if procurement were to handle hiring of on-demand talent. I really strongly, disagree with that. I think HR should be responsible because we are the ones who can source the right candidates, and the quality of the hire is definitely something that should be HR responsibility. Procurement, yes, they're very good, needless to say, but they're good in sourcing materials rather than sourcing human beings, people.
Spot on, and congratulations, because you've described a lot of very good practices. Unfortunately, it's not so common, but we do get, I'm sure, Abir, we do get some of the people in our network being full-time hired, and we always have this mixed feeling, right? It's like, okay, the project is finished, but happy client, happy expert, right? So very good, thank you. Mohammed, what's your take? What's your experience in IoT Square, for example?
So I echo 100% what Abir and Fatma have described. I mean, it's very important, critical for on-demand talent to be given the same level of comfort, the same level of, benefits that, a full-time employee can get to the extent possible. So, for example, when we do our family day, we make sure that everyone is invited with their families, whether he's full-time, contract, doesn't matter. When we do our annual gathering, again, the same. We give away all the giveaways. In fact, we include the contract employees as part of our reward culture as well. So when we are rewarding the best, team performers, the best, employee of the month, whenever we have these talent rewards happening, we include all those contract resources part of this. They're not, excluded from this pool of awards in any way. Now, another important point Fatma mentioned was, in the case of the person that was hired, he was an Arabic speaker. So yeah, that I think makes a big difference. And you will be surprised to know that today there are many master programs being offered in Arabic languages across India, Pakistan, Indonesia. They are now preparing the workforce with Arabic speaking skills for the Middle East, because they know it's not just talent that will suffice. It's the language barriers as well that need to be addressed. Because no matter how good, how skilled a person is, in order to really infuse himself with the culture here, he needs to be speaking the language. So, many universities I'm hearing are offering these Arabic master language programs in India. And I have even seen this firsthand. There are Arabic speaking call centers running out of India today. So in cities like Hyderabad and others, there are Arabic-speaking call centers. So that you can run a call center with an Arabic-speaking talent all out of an Indian-speaking, and in the Indian continent, the subcontinent. So yeah, language barriers have to be overcome. And I think one thing that we could do better was the language programs for our local foreign expats here. So any expat that comes in, I see them struggling trying to find good language-speaking coaches, or going and enrolling for courses that they discover on Instagram or TikTok. People who are advertising themselves as coaches and not really picking up the language so well. So I think as a corporate, we should have this program for all our foreign talent that we bring in. It helps them get infused into the culture more easily.
Very good, very, very interesting. A lot of the on-demand roles need to work hand in hand with suppliers, partners, staff, right? Language is mandatory, otherwise you cannot bridge those conversations, right? So yeah, makes a lot of sense. I was not aware that the upskilling in languages in the subcontinent was so strong. Thanks for sharing. Okay, so I think we managed to cover most all of the topics we had listed. I don't know if we've forgotten anything. I don't know if any of you want to add something specific.
If you don't mind, actually, I wanted to add something just as a closing statement. And I'm sure Abir and Muhammad would have an opinion about this. In the Middle East, definitely the war for talent is on. It's very much real. With countries such as Qatar, Bahrain, Oman, Saudi, and other, Middle East, Bahrain also is included. There's definitely a war for talent. Because of that, UAE has managed to implement some exquisite talent management strategies in order to be able to attract foreign and expat talent from, with various parts of the world. So globally, we have implemented some new, labor law policies that we've implemented just recently to be able to attract the best foreign talent. And that is, we have now started to offer a golden visa for expats, so 10-year visas for people who are working perhaps in IT, or even in medicine, doctors, nurses, or any hospital staff. And I think key talents such as engineers, project management, they have actually received a 10-year golden visa. In some cases, we've also implemented citizenship plan. We're offering citizenship to some of the employees, expat, who have brought a lot to the country, who've been working here and living here for quite a long time. So definitely, there's key strategies that UAE has implemented because there is that whole war for talent, and obviously we're competing with the best of the Middle East countries, especially as Mohammed mentioned, Saudi Arabia is now really rapidly expanding and growing and becoming one of the largest. Like I think just recently I've noticed that Riyadh Air has implemented and started their operations, and a majority of their talent came from where I used to work, Etihad Airways. So the senior leadership is Tony Douglas, I think Ray Gamble, some of the people that I used to actually work with were also my colleagues. So yes, we are competing with the best of the best. And obviously these key strategies that we've implemented will help us to attract the right talent from around the world globally and retain them. So we have not only talent management strategies, but then we have effective employee retention strategies.
Good. At a national level.
Yes, at UAE nationals as well as foreign talent.
Yeah.
As you are aware, UAE nationals, there's quite a few UAE nationals when we compare that to our expat population. And obviously, in some areas we might excel, but then in some areas there's, the on-demand talent is needed, especially when it comes to artificial intelligence, AI, and IT. So that's the reason why we need to attract the right talent, because we have this industry growing rapidly, and that demand is there. So we have to adapt a sustainable strategy that will help us and allow us to be able to keep up with the demand for the right talent. And yes, I think that the strategy is very sound and is definitely very much long-term for the UAE.
Brilliant.
The final closing remarks I'd like to make, Shabi, as well. There is no silver bullet. There is no one-size-fits-all approach. I think challenges with talent recruitment will remain as long as our economies are growing, as long as companies are alive and growing. And we should always keep looking at the options available, including the on-demand talent option. For example, there will be niche industries, there will be new industries coming up. Always, like now, Saudi Arabia is setting up its own nuclear plants. So obviously, there's never been a nuclear engineer growing up in Saudi Arabia. You're going to have to get that talent from abroad. So next is going to be space and satellites. So that's another upcoming industry where Saudi Arabia wants to manufacture its own satellites and deploy satellites from Saudi Arabia. So there is always going to be some new, industries coming up, and there will always be a need for on-demand talent. And hopefully, we all keep growing and accelerating forward.
Actually, we had a few of those satellite requests recently. Yes. Well done. I don't know if we have any questions.
Osaibi, I'd just like to jump in for a final thought. Actually, I just want to comment on Fatima's intervention. I think UAE has set a very high standard for all of us here. Congratulations. I mean, my daughter, 25 years old, just jumped into Dubai. She has been receiving a lot of offers, and she's there right now. It's become the dream. Like UAE is now the dream for a lot of the youth. And congratulations. I think great talent has a choice. We need to always remember that. When there's someone with great talent, they always have a choice. And when they have a choice, then they can choose where to go and what to do. So you were saying the war on talent, and we can see the need in Saudi Arabia on talent. And I'm seeing the beautiful, as Mohammed was talking, the beautiful need and the acceleration of the need on the Saudi talent, and the reactions of the talent that we are approaching, on the other hand, towards Saudi Arabia is also shifting positively. So before we used to say Saudi Arabia versus now people are becoming more attracted to Saudi Arabia. So there's a lot of lessons learned and collaboration between the countries on the talent. I feel also Jordan has a great talent. We have a lot of Jordanians in UAE, a lot of Jordanians in Saudi Arabia that are performing really well with government projects and even being employed by the government as a matter of fact. So there's a great opportunity, I feel, for collaboration here, for the talent, for the on-demand versus the full-time. I think we're in a really great place on where everyone can collaborate to make ways for development and growth in the countries around us. And I feel like I just want to say thank you for all of you. Lovely to meet you. And I hope we have time to take some questions. But great job, Outvise. Thank you, Anna and Osaibi, for putting all this together and introducing us to beautiful and great panelists, Muhammad and Fatima. Lovely to meet you.
Thank you.
It's our pleasure to have you all.
Pleasure as well.
Thank you very much. I don't know if we do have questions. No, I don't think
we have a lot of questions on the chat, Osaibi. If you like, I can read some, or if you want to read them. There are a lot of questions coming through the chat.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. We will share the presentation. What would the major impacts of the current political issues, global inflation, military conflicts on the employment and outsourcing market? I think we touched upon that. Do you mean Oman is playing less or more than other countries in the GCC? I mean, proportionally, it's playing its fair chance. It's playing quite a lot. Obviously, it's a smaller type of economy. So in relative terms, our experience is that the size of the projects is not as big, but they're definitely running huge digital transformations in the public sector. They're looking at rolling out further telecom infrastructures, submarine cables. So they are busy in Oman. Yes, it's one of the countries that I believe is pushing. Okay. Logistics, legal, and contractual challenges for the on-demand talent approach. Okay, that's a very good question. Anybody feels like going at it, or I'm happy to start? Okay. I'm happy to give a few pointers on the logistics, legal, and contractual challenges, right? Obviously, compliance is a big requirement, and it can be dealt in multiple ways, right? So we have the hybrid and remote models, which become much easier to put in place, put it this way, right? In a remote way, you have commercial contracts or agreements where you invoice and you pay for work done, right? And then locally they deal with the tax and their local freelance requirements, right? When it comes to hybrid models or on-site models, I typically differentiate two scenarios. One is a short-term scenario where typically you can manage with business visas. You require certain sponsorships, and you require those visas to be requested at certain embassies. And once it's obtained, you typically have 90 days multiple entry, and these could be even extended, right? When it's longer than that, you enter the world of residency and work permits. And there's three main ways to go around this, right? The client provides, which is a possibility, but not always a good one. Second one is we have local partners that can act where we do not have that type of presence. There's local partners that can act as employees of record, right? So engage with you in a contract for a limited duration of time, and they provide residency, visa, etc. Or if you have legal entities in certain countries, like in our case, we have in the UAE and in Qatar, and very soon in Saudi, we are able to become also, if needed, employer of record for that project, right? In a nutshell, of course, then you also comply with medical insurance, travel insurance, and other types of expenses. All of these are typically I guess it depends on which marketplace is. In our case, it's very transparent, and these are the costs, and we separate the fees, the costs, and the margin. Yeah, in a nutshell, maybe very simplistic, but these are the different scenarios. I don't know if Abir or Fatima Mohammed want to add anything on this.
Yeah, I can jump in. Basically, you were saying like there's a hybrid model and so on. So we only face this matter when we want people physical on the ground. Things have, I must say, like they become easy when it's just a small engagement online or virtual. We don't need to get into any of those. So that makes probably costs come down so people can work virtually. But when we want to move people to physically, for example, to Saudi Arabia, or we have a consultant in Qatar, Bahrain, definitely you need to acquire the right, papers, do all the legal aspects. So we use companies, if full-time engagement, we use companies, employment of records. I'm sure some of you heard of these. So we use them for the on-the-ground employment. Or we have our clients do all that part for now. We feel like it's a big burden that we don't want to get into, to be very honest. So that has worked for us so far.
Yes. We find in our case that for certain countries where we have critical mass, it's better to deal with it ourselves in terms of process, speed, experience, and costs. But otherwise, we also use partners as employment of record. Yes. Okay, Abdelaziz Nagi, in your experience, how has the demand for specific skills like tech or engineering in the Middle East shifted with the rise of on-demand talent? Avir, if you have a view on that. So do you find the demand of specific skills, has it shifted since we have on demand? I mean, in our case, based on our specialization, we are seeing a rise around data science and all the data engineering, architects, and governance type of roles, or data migration, right? We've seen quite a few of those lately. And then, it so happens that we have certain clients that are working on IoT and other products. So we also see that. Okay.
Yeah, for us, Saibi, it also shifted, because now a lot of digital and tech is more requested compared to before because of the shift on digital transformation. So there's a lot of demand on the digital enabled consultants or on-demand experts. And even with our regular demand of staff, because we also do full-time staffing, the digitally enabled and the tech savvy people, no matter what the industry or sector is required. So it becomes part of that. So not only a digital, expert or a tech savvy expert, but also whatever kind of expert. Now the companies and organizations are requesting that person, no matter their expertise, they need to be also tech savvy. So that has been recently became part of the description that for the job required, and it's only, of course, obvious, common sense.
Okay.
And I would like to also add that the role of the on-demand talent post-COVID has definitely started to play a pivotal role, especially in the UAE, in the labor landscape, such as the embracing of hybrid talent models. Organizations are adapting permanent and freelance talent to maintain flexibility and resilience in these market fluctuations. And also focus is on specialized key skill sets like the industries as we evolve, the demand for specialized skills like AI, data analytics, and cybersecurity are definitely very much highly in demand. And as Mohammed had mentioned, the talent is definitely, we're internally developing certain talent sets like nuclear energy, clean energy, AI models, engineering, all of these specialized skill set are developed. The localization of the talent is definitely very vast. We have universities and training programs just to be able to gear it for these specialized industries and specialized skills that we are definitely demanding. And so, and momentarily, while we develop the talent and provide them with not necessarily the skill set, but also they need to have that experience to be able to tackle work-related issues. We're providing them with that. And in the meantime, we're sourcing talent, outsourcing definitely on-demand talent. And we're investing in talent platforms to leverage technology to build or partner with platforms that streamline the hiring of on-demand talent, which enhances efficiency and reduces our overhead costs.
Thank you. I think we are pressed with time. There's a few questions that we didn't manage to get through. One just posted now. I'm afraid we don't have more time. So we'll try, maybe we'll circulate those questions. I don't know if we can capture them and maybe try and respond via email. There was one that actually mentioned that some of the platforms it's difficult to get feedback or to connect with these platforms, right? So we'll try not to do that. And you should always be finding someone behind the platform or person, right? So I thank everyone sincerely for your time, for your contribution. Fatima, thanks a lot for your time spent here with us. Also, Mohammed, he had to drop slightly earlier. And Abir, nice to see you again. And thank you very much for joining the webinar. And thanks everyone that connected.
Thank you, Sabi. Thank you so much. Pleasure being here.
Pleasure's ours. Thank you.